Welcome to Comics in the Making. My name is Ryan Holgerson. I'm the creator of Slackmatic, and I'm joined as always by Levi Erickson, the creator of The Big. Levi, how you doing?
Man, I couldn't be better.
Awesome. Despite your wasp sting on your finger,
Yeah,
doing good.
it got me on this finger somehow.
It's my drawing finger.
No, I got as long as I have these, I think. Even these, or I'd figure it out.
If you were Eric Larson, you'd be fine because he draws like this. So.
One way or the other, I'll figure it out.
All right. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that is pretty exciting to me. It's how I got my start in comics and really continue my comics career. And we're going to be talking about the mini comic. So for people that don't know, a mini comic in its purest sense is a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper cut in half and then folded, put together, stapled in the middle. So you're gonna get something like this, and it's just six pages. You got a front cover, you got a back cover, and that's what it is. I printed these for a freebie for Heroes Con last year. And I was just giving these away to anybody that came to my table. But you hear it tossed around a lot as a good quote unquote training ground for cartoonists who want to get into the mainstream publishing or whatever. I've always kind of not liked that term of training ground.
But yeah,
because there's so many good professional quality mini comics out there, and I've got a stack of them, and we're going to be going through some and talk and really showing you guys what's possible using tools that are readily accessible to most people.
yeah.
So for this one, for instance, I printed this at like the FedEx Kinkos in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Just sent them a file, had them print front and back on this pink paper. I think every copy maybe costs like 15 or 20 cents or something like that. And went and we cut them all ourselves. I think I got my daughter to staple some for me for that show because I was running short on time. But it's something that anybody can do.
Mhm.
And it really will give you a good grasp on how printing works. It'll give you a good window into even maybe some distribution and pricing your stuff and selling your stuff. The skills I've learned from putting mini comics together and print on demand books together, I've used for actual paying like freelance jobs, like helping put books together for local authors and stuff like that. So I highly recommend everybody out there do a mini comic. If you haven't done a mini comic, do a mini comic.
Oh, yeah.
We're not gonna get into the nitty gritty per se of here's how you lay out your pages and stuff like that. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube. There's tons of articles and stuff like that that'll kind of help you get started doing that. Like I said, what I really want to do is kind of highlight some of the gems for me in mini comics and also what's possible in that print method that some people might thought of, because it can go way beyond just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So first off, I'm gonna highlight a few of my books before I get to other people.
Oh yeah, always with the
So I think I showed this off on a previous episode, but this is another mini comic that I did. And with this one, Yeah, at least you
Yeah.
guys got one. He's got good taste. Um, so with this one, I actually, got a different stock for the cover. I printed it full bleed. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, that's when the image goes all the way to the edge of the paper. And I wanted to give it just a little more spit and polish than maybe just printing at a Kinko's and stuff like that. So I printed these at a online printer that was referenced in an episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe. Actually, Jim Rugg mentioned it, and it's called Best Value Copy. And they're an online printer. They have tons of paper options. I've printed, I think at this point, at least 3 or 4 books through them, and it's always great quality. Again, they can print full bleed, which a normal copy machine is not going to do.
Right.
And their prices are insanely low. In fact, they do free shipping on orders of $125
You can hit that pretty
or
easy
more,
stuff.
and I have not been able. Huh?
I was gonna say
What
that
was
you
that?
can hit that pretty easy if you're printing, but I think you're about
No,
to prove
no,
me wrong.
I'm about to prove you wrong. I haven't been able to hit that 125 limit yet. I always pay for shipping.
Wow.
Um, so I'm normally printing in about 100 books when I print a new book.
Woo!
That usually that holds me off for a couple years, or maybe a year. It depends. It depends how popular something is. You never know. But yeah, the lowest I go usually is like 50. But I like to do 100. But even printing 100 books, even if it's like 20, 24 pages long, I'm still not reaching that limit. That's how good their prices are.
Oh wow. Okay.
And even when you factor in the shipping, versus like a Kinko's or a Staples or something like that, it's still cheaper. It's still cheaper.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
And I've just noticed being an old school mini comics guy who used to go to spend hours on end at a Kinko's printing books.
That was the
Um,
old school way, man.
oh yeah, for sure.
Zines or
Yeah,
flyers
and-
for your punk show or um,
yeah.
you
And
know.
back in the day, these places were 24 hours. So
Oh God, yeah.
I would go down there. You'd be there all night printing books.
Oh yeah, you go in about 1 a.m. and you bring
Oh yeah,
beers, you just kind of like push the bag on the counter and they just hand you the key and
yep,
you
yep.
just fuck shit up in Kinko's, man. That
Well,
was
and
great.
there was a lot of there's a lot of there were tutorials um on how to scam Kinkos, and like you
Yeah.
could hit that key really hard and fuck up the counts or whatever. There were all sorts of
It-
ways.
I interviewed the band 15 from Berkeley like back in like 1996 and
Uh-huh.
the cassette's around here somewhere. I'm gonna have to resurrect that and get that in the world. Um and there's a lengthy part of that interview where that's the point of discussion is how to get the most out of a Kinko's and spin the least.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, they were great. Uh, to continue the story time, I remember. I think it was the first year I did Heroes. I had just moved to Charlotte, and I tabled at Heroes Convention. This would have been 1999, and we had some books that we had to print, and there was a 24-hour Kinko's down in Uptown or
Yeah.
somewhere. I can't even remember. I'm sure it's still there, but I haven't been there in years. We got there at like midnight, and every copier was being used, and they were all cartoonists. They were all, and what's funny is I met some people that I actually ended up working with at my day job later in the future.
I was
Um,
gonna say probably the cast that was there, we probably know them now
oh
too.
yeah, oh yeah, no, these were like total like mainstays for like Heroes and stuff like that. But it was so great. It was so funny. Like we're all just talking, printing and talking about our craft and everything in the
Yeah.
middle of this Kinko's. The employees were like, "What the fuck is happening?" Like,
And Kinko's made like $6 that night.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's why I really would push people though to best value copy, because if you go look at um the prices of per prints at a lot of these places now, they've skyrocketed.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't recommend a UPS store at all.
yeah, no, oh no, UPS is off. I tried UPS once, and I didn't even print anything there. They told me the price, and I said, "You're out of your goddamn mind."
Yeah.
And I left. So if you have your shit together, you have time to send something off for print, best value copy, highly recommend. So I want to start off showing some more examples of like the purest mini comic. And I'm going to start off with some mini comics from Pam Bliss. And Pam Bliss, she's a longtime mini comics artist, and she's one of the first people that I met personally in the scene. So I still remember it. It was Mid Ohio Con 1997, I think, and they used to run a small press convention on top of Mid Ohio Con, and it was like you had to go up these stairs, and it was this little room, but it was full of people selling mini comics, and these are people that I still know today. I think we've mentioned Small Press Heroes, which is a Facebook group that we're a part of. A lot of those guys, we go back decades at this point. But Pam Bliss, she's been doing this for I think 30 plus years, and she's just created this whole universe of her characters, and it's just and she's got this great simple line work, but it just works
Oh
so
yeah.
great. And I remember the first time I saw her stuff, I was immediately drawn to it. And so I think she's got a website. You can find her online. Definitely go send her some PayPal or some money. She's still working today. She's got great stuff. I love it. Moving on,
Yeah, what
I
you got?
wanted to highlight. I've got some local stuff. Um, and the first one I'm going to mention is from Dustin Harbin. Uh,
Yeah.
Dustin's actually done some like professional lettering work in the industry. He's a former employee of Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. He actually sold me my first comics when I moved to Charlotte. But he does these diary comics, and he uses his he does a lot of analog stuff, and he works with a lot of dip pens and really fine lines and super detailed
Oh yeah.
work. Um, but as a book nerd, what I really love about his stuff is this is the mini comic size, but look how thick that is.
Oh yeah.
So this is like, I don't know, 50 some pages, I think, or almost 50 pages. And so what he's doing is he's taking that same mini comic format, putting it together, but then making these big books. And, you know, to do this, you've got to have a hardcore paper cutter where you can really get in there and get this
Oh yeah.
nice
Yeah. Good
smooth
call.
line. And I'm such a book nerd, and so when I see books like this, it inspires me to make books like this. So highly recommend. Dustin definitely has a website. He's got lots of mini comics available. Koyama Press actually put out a collection of his diary comics, which I have also, and it's really good. And he's a local Charlotte guy, so definitely check him out. Um, so next guy I wanted to show off is Pat Rooks. And Pat is from Athens, Georgia, I believe. I first met him tabling at Fluke, but he comes to Heroes Convention pretty much every year. He's got a booth there, and he does a lot of really unique things with the mini comics format. So this, at first glance, looks just like a normal mini comic.
Yeah.
Although it's on newsprint.
See, that's cool.
Um,
I like that. I
yeah, and for people that don't know, the newsprint is really hard to print on. So he might have had this professionally done. I don't know. I should have asked him. Um, I've printed on newsprint before, and you really you have to have a laser printer. You can't print off inkjet. The ink's gonna seep into there, and it just doesn't work.
right.
But I used to have a laser printer at home, and I bought a big ream of newsprint, and I would print comics at home, and I would do that. And one year I went to SPX just as a guest, and I was trading comics with those, and oh man, there's so many comic nerds that were like, "How the fuck did you do this?" Like they're just like, because it actually felt like newsprint, and
Oh yeah,
because
that's
there's some places out there like print on demand that claim they do newsprint, and I've tried them, and the problem is it's too slick, because the
oh yeah,
process of printing it just turns that paper into slick paper.
right.
Um, so anyway, so what's cool about this is it looks like just your normal mini comic, but then it folds out
Huh.
into this 11 by 17 print.
Well,
Um,
it makes me, like think that he broke that down on that size of artboard and
yeah,
rendered it with that plan in mind.
yeah, yeah.
It doesn't
So
have to be that way, but it makes me think that's how it was constructed.
right. So this is that's an example of something, and I'm not going to be able to put it back together right now, but that's an example of something that you can do on a small level that's really unique.
Mhm.
And when you're tabling at a show or something like that, and you've got someone who's never seen these mini comics or whatever before, they're going to see that and they're going to be like, well, this is cool.
Yeah.
And you can't really, I mean, I guess you could do that on a mass level, but that's the stuff I like, where it's like, that attention to detail. We're going to do
Right.
something really unique. um I'm going to show another Pat Rooks book off now, and this is his series, Celery Stalks. And what's cool about this one is, and I did not realize this until his collection came out. So it's this weird size. It's not quite digest. It's not quite a mini comic. Like, it's smaller than a digest,
Yeah.
bigger than a mini comic. It's kind of tall. And I didn't realize until his collection came out, which is this right here. He's got 2 volumes of this, that it's the pulp novel size.
Oh,
So this is a Doc Savage that I got. I probably paid like $2 for it. And I just happened to put it on my bookshelf right next to it and was like, holy shit, it's the exact same size. So man, when I saw that, and I already loved the comic, but when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's just freaking genius, and
that's
this is very much a pulp story. I know it was 100% planned. That's what he wanted to do.
nice.
Um,
And that's some real like publishing comic journalists like nerd level shit.
oh yeah.
And it's
Well, and
amazing.
that's the thing for him. When he was printing these out, he was releasing these on his Patreon. Um, and for him to do this, that means he was, printing this out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and doing the guts, and then having to trim
Yeah.
to get to that size. So it takes a lot of time to do that, but it's that little bit of attention, that just it makes it different. It makes it
Yeah.
unique. It helps you stand out.
The fun aspect of the
So
creation, like go back a handful of years when we tabled at Heroes Con. I had a little mini comic of a beer run. That was the name of the comic. This dude's going on a beer run
right, right, right.
for about 6 pages, and the interior, the exterior was probably like resume paper that I fed through my printer. The interior was newsprint, that I cut from you get those big newsprint pads when you take
Yeah.
drawing class. So I cut those to 8.5 by 11, fed them through my printer,
Oh,
and
yeah.
those. But I remember that night, I put on a movie and I'm just cutting pages and stapling and cutting. It's another part of the process that it doesn't have to be necessary for you to create comics, But and in some cases, like I don't need to be doing that stuff, but it is its own enjoyable step if you are making that part of your product, I think.
Right. And so, and you know, there there are times when I use print on demand because I'm like, I just don't want to spend 2 hours putting this stuff together. Um, but there's something to be said about, you know, you spend all this time creating the comic and you're getting that artist's hand, and then you're putting the book together, you're
Yep.
stapling it, you're, you know, and they're getting even more of your hand
Oh yeah.
when you're doing it all yourself. And I, you know what, that's kind of my when we're talking about artisanal comics and, you know, doing all this stuff, you know, on paper and everything,
Yep.
where I work digital, but I'm still printing this up and folding and stapling and doing all this stuff by hand,
Oh yeah.
thinking about that stuff. You know, it's all very artisanal when you really think about it.
No, it is, and it I think it strikes the chord like with the legend over in hardcore where you'll hear Ian MacKaye talk about those like original like Teen Idols records, folding and gluing the record sleeves
Yeah,
themselves,
yeah,
and it's yeah, you're a music, punk rock music guy, so am I. So I think it just comes extra natural to people who have a taste of that DIY labor in
yeah,
skateboarding too. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I spent more time cleaning a spot than skating it
yeah,
because, that's the spot and that's what we're doing today. And we have to clean it to skate it.
yeah,
We have to make our record sleeve. We have to go to Kinko's and scam them as much as we can. It's you're hustling when you're
yeah,
making, when you're, making your own shit. And
for
that I
sure.
think that's all just part of it. And it's natural. Other people who don't have that background may not, why wouldn't I send it off to someone to have it? You know, for us, it's for people with the experience, I think it's okay. So now what? You know,
Yeah,
how do I staple this together? You know,
yeah. And that's a thing too. Like when we're talking about making, you know, what's so great about the mini comic and printing stuff like this is it's really fast. So there's not a lot of time between the production of the actual story and the art and everything, and then the production of the actual book. You know, if you're talking traditional publishing and stuff like that, that can be years, that can be months. You hear artists talk about, you know, by the time their book actually gets published, like they don't even want to talk, like it's dead to them now. You know, like they've
yeah.
got to get into this different mode of pushing it, and that's a great thing about self-publishing and doing different, you know, mini comics and stuff like that is you can you can literally draw a 6 page mini comic in a day, which I've done before, and send it to the printer and have it. I mean, you could have it that night if you really wanted to, and have it in your hand.
Right.
Um, and there's not many other forms of media that are like that.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So moving on. So this is something I forgot about until we started talking about doing this mini comic episode. This is, I guess, this is a vintage mini comic at this point. This is from 1999, but this is from Brian Ralph. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if you ever ran into. I know you did more online courses, but I don't know if he still is. But Brian Ralph was, at least for a while, a professor at SCAD.
That,
Um,
that name is definitely ringing a bell.
so he came to popularity with he was part of the Fort Thunder group in Providence, Rhode Island, which was like this, I guess, like a warehouse in Providence, you know. And they I think a lot of these guys, they went to RISD, um which is the Rhode Island School of Design. But they you know, they all lived in this warehouse and like put on these like crazy wrestling matches, and they had screen printing, and they all did mini comics and stuff like that. There's other guys that came out of there in this scene, but I've always loved Brian's stuff. I think I got this from him at SPX the last year I did it, when I actually had a table. And he does these really cool, for the most part, he does these silent comics. Um, and I pointed this book out because the cover is screen printed.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so and he did it on this pink paper, and then used like three colors, it looks like, um at varying shades or whatever, to get that effect. And I've always really liked it. And like, I don't think this mini comic's ever been like, I mean, he's got a bunch like this. I don't think it's ever been reprinted or anything. um
The more we talk about him, the more, yes, he definitely was one of my instructors.
yeah, he's a cool dude, man.
And I met him at Heroes Con, like either the year I graduated or the, in between. I'd taken his class already, and I think it was a more animation oriented, like design for animation, rather
yeah,
than
yeah,
animating anything. But we were, we had to do like, turnarounds. We had to do, um, oh shit, I can't remember the term, but you do like a whole background set. There's a term, but yeah. And I remember like talking to him at Heroes Con. He's like, "Yeah, man, you're doing great stuff. You can get hired for your backgrounds alone." And I was like, "How do I do that?" You know?
dude. He's so, like, he's so encouraging. Because I can tell you, I would send him comics when I was, a teenager, and like I knew about him because they actually did an article about him in Thrasher, because he's a skateboard dude.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah.
And they used to do these like little like 2-page articles about different artists in the skateboarding scene. And for whatever reason, like I remember I told him about it when I saw him at SPX, and he said it was like a real fluke that he ended up in that or whatever. um but they did this article about him and what they were kind of doing at Fort Thunder or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so I had to get some of his books. And then like this is actually Cave In, which was published by Highwater Books, which no longer exists, I don't think. But even this is made up from mini comics. So, like, he used to print mini comics of this and stuff. Um, but yeah, he was always real encouraging for me. I know he had sent me a postcard or something like that and was like, "You should do character design and stuff like that." So
Yeah.
it was always great to have a little bit of an encouragement from him.
Yeah.
He's got a show on Netflix. Daybreak was based on one of his books. Completely different. That's all I'm gonna say. I didn't even realize. I knew he had a show coming out. It was so different from the trailer to the book that I didn't even put it together that was his show. And I just happened to watch it and stuff like that. So they changed a lot of stuff. The book is great. That's all I'm gonna say. I love you, Brian. It's great.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just like the more we're talking, the more I'm thinking. It's like, yeah, dude, I totally like. We had to do our whole thing. Basically, we had to make a show. I don't want to tangent.
Oh yeah.
But we had to make a show, and I made it. Basically, I used the Charlotte punk scene as the backdrop. The name of the show was No Anger Control, and all the characters are amalgams of people like that I've known, maybe in Charlotte, maybe in other places. We had to write a script. We had to do storyboards. Uh, so yeah, the punk club where it all takes place is called the Grindstone.
I don't know what you're referencing.
You know, it's got nothing to do with Charlotte. You won't find anything close to that.
Oh, I'll tell you this.
You know,
The milestone is such a pain in the ass to draw. Uh,
tell me
I
about it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I left a lot
So,
out. I left a lot of shit out on that, but
oh, me too. So
uh
many stickers. No, I did. I've done more than a few comics at the milestone, and John always liked it. One of the previous owners.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man, I
Oh
love it.
yeah,
I love it. I love it when you draw the milestone or
oh,
whatever, and I'm like,
definitely.
I,
And I've
I,
got
I want to say I love drawing it, but oh my God, it's a
we had to
lot.
we had to make a freaking sculpture, because that was part of the animation thing.
Yeah.
You had to make your little armature or whatever. And so I got one over here loosely based on a figure that's well known in this town, for better or for worse. But it's the only action figure, to my knowledge, of any person of note in the Charlotte punk scene. So
Yeah. You're gonna have to tell
yeah,
me who
and
that
that's all
is
because of Brian
offline.
Ralph.
I actually
All
don't know
because
who.
of you, Brian Ralph, dude. All right.
All right. So
Mini comics.
moving on. I'm gonna highlight a couple more local dudes.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, yes,
so
yes.
this is one of Heracles Petmesis. We call him Herc. Everyone calls him Herc. I'm gonna call him Herc because man, I'm gonna butcher your name, dude. Um,
Probably
yep,
not.
and there that's his collection
This is
of these.
mini omnibus.
Yeah. So these are all he would do these Inktober series
Yes.
for several years in a row. And man, it's I love all of his stuff, but this has always been some of my favorites. And I guess it might be hard to call this a mini comic because it's it's pretty big, but you know, again though, this is the kind of stuff you can do. You know, this is a square. Um,
Which is unique, very unique.
yes. Um, and I love the printing on this. I know he actually got this you know printed at a house. I don't think he actually put this together or whatever, but you know still on a small scale, and I think it counts. And
We'll allow
uh
it.
yeah, we're gonna allow it, and really just the show off Herc. And he's such a great guy in the Charlotte scene. He put together Sketch Charlotte um years ago, and it's still going on. And yeah, our comic scene in this area would not be the same without him, without his support. Um, and then another local guy is going to be Henry Udy. Uh, you know, and this is another Square comic.
Yeah.
Um, he does a lot of kind of diary comic stuff. Also, posts a lot on Instagram.
Yes.
Um, I love this
I think
printing because I
daily.
believe he this is on like a cream paper, and but it's like I think it's like a purple ink. So I I don't know if he
I've
just
got that one, so I'll have to,
yeah,
in person again. Like,
right.
does the cream like pull that out of the whatever he's using? Do you think, or we could ask him?
I mean, I guess we could just ask him. I
Henry,
I
come to
should
the
have
show. Talk to us, bud. How'd
yeah.
you make that work?
Yeah. And you know, and I mean, it's like some of it looks black, but there's, man, it definitely looks like there's like some tinges of purple and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, for sure. So I don't know. It doesn't, it's not risographed or anything. I mean, this is, it's photocopied. So he might have just sprung for the color printing, um, to give it that look. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but his stuff's great. Like I said, he does a lot of auto bio stuff, posts a lot on Instagram, um, and I love it.
Hmm.
My wife was having surgery a couple years ago, and I had like my haul from Heroes Con in my bag, and I read all of his stuff
Oh,
while I was sitting in the waiting room. Let's see. All right, so this is not a mini comic. This is The End of the Fucking World by Charles Forsman. And I'm showing it off because this is yet another creator with a Netflix series. You can go watch this on Netflix, which it's actually pretty good. Um, but I'm showing it off because it came from mini comics. And he used to put out, it was like a mini comics kind of like subscription where people would, I think he had a bunch of other creators attached to it, and it was called like Oily Comics, I believe. But this whole book is made up of pretty much like 8-page chapters that he was putting out on a monthly basis.
yeah.
Um,
Kind of like the
and
format of
then,
the
you know,
OG.
it got connected and are all collected, and now it's his big book, and now it's a Netflix series, and I think he's got another Netflix series in the works, and you know he's a big name in indie comics.
Hell yeah.
um
And
so you know that's those are the ones I picked out. There's so many more.
oh,
um
and I think it's that last example that you pulled. It's not the only example like that in your pool, but like mini comics aren't a training ground for
no,
moving to the majors.
no,
There's a through line to mini comics to whatever you want to make of it.
right.
You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's the point you're getting at, not to get there before you do, but I
No,
mean,
no, it for sure is, you know. And look, you know, and they're few and far between, but there's some people out there that are making might be a small living, but they are making a living from doing mini comics.
and
You know, and you got to hustle. It's hard, but I can think of at least two or three um that are making some legitimate money, printing everything themselves and putting it together and self distributing everything. Um, you know, so that's not a training ground. You
no,
know,
hell no,
that's you're a small business.
and I
Um,
can speak from immediate experience. I'm not making a living, but damn it, sometimes the car payment comes out of that instead of you
yep.
know the bank
Well,
account.
and I think I talked about doing Fluke a couple years ago. And
Mhm.
I did great.
Yeah.
You know, they're few and far between sometimes, but that's why you keep at it. Um, And I do think, you know, when you treat it like a quote unquote training ground, maybe that's what it looks like.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I know we come from punk rock and we like to be punk rock and stuff like that, but I know how much my books cost to produce and I figure out a price based on that.
Mhm.
And I will argue to the end of time that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Um, you
And
know,
I just well, and I think we're going to talk about these kinds of topics later on. But man, we talk about like you're hustling, you're making your comic, you're creating it, you're printing it wherever you're printing it. Then you're taking those pages home, you're folding them, you're stapling them, you're taking them to the place, and you're selling them for the price you're selling them for. And then you got slick nobody publisher just like you next to you, with all their standees and all their signs and all their banners and their two tables, and with nothing except for the books they're trying to hawk that they sent off to have printed somewhere else. And they're trying to get $10 for a normal format book, and fair is fair. But I mean, give me a break. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, and also, and uh, I know we're running out of time.
Yeah. Give you the last word, bud.
I just want to say if you come to my table, I'm gonna have about at least 10 books there,
Yeah.
and some of these other guys they might have one.
Yep.
So there's gonna be selection. But
And that,
all right,
that's the difference. All right, man. You good?
thanks for joining us. Go make a mini comic.
We are out.